Hey everyone, Karina here. It has been a few weeks since I even recorded a video, let alone uploaded one. We had a bunch of sickness in the house off and on. I was sick, baby was sick, everyone in the house was sick. It was really rough for a little bit. And then we actually had a couple of big projects we did, such as moving my husband's office from the living room into his own individual workspace. So that's where you see me now. We don't have nice aesthetics or anything. It's just in one of our extra rooms we've been using for storage, but it has been incredible for the whole household, and that is where I am currently set up. So it's been a little while since I've done a video, and I was trying to figure out what would be the best topic to dive back in with and what would be the most helpful. I decided I wanted my first topic back into the book and writing and publishing YouTube world would be one that I kind of just revamped some of my knowledge on. And so I want to help you guys out with this as well, and opportunity for anybody to give tips and tricks also in the comments below, of course. It's about most authors' most dreaded part of writing and publishing process, which is the book blurb. A lot of us will write a whole novel, novella, short story, whatever it is that you write. We'll write the whole book, right? Just fine. But then once we get to a point where we have to write the blurb, we all, our brains short circuit. I don't know what's wrong with us as writers, but it is a universal truth that most of us hate writing the blurb. And I am also the same. I'm no different than everyone else. I hate writing book blurbs. It is one of the most difficult parts for me. But I recently learned and kind of revamped one of my book blurbs, and so I wanted to walk through my process with you guys as I update my other one for Blood Trials and kind of go through that process together, and see what I do and see kind of the research and thought process I go through. And of course, if you have done book blurbs or if you have mastered them, please let us know in the comments below your tips and tricks for it. But otherwise, let's just dive straight in. So I'm just on Amazon here looking at the ebooks, and I'm in the science fiction and fantasy section. I write paranormal fiction at the moment and kind of werewolves and shapeshifters. That's my current trilogy I'm in. So I'm going to filter this down, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple of examples of book blurbs before we dive into editing my current one. We're going to kind of narrow it down here to paranormal books. And we're going to kind of look at some of the book blurbs here. And actually, I think I'm going to filter it even more. I think I'm going to filter it down to, where is it? I saw it. Aha, shapeshifters. Because that kind of fits a little more with werewolves specifically. So I'm going to filter it down to shapeshifters. We don't want to copy book blurbs. We want to make sure that they're true to our own voice. But I think there's a misconception with a lot of writers that the book blurb is supposed to be a summary of your book. And while you do want to summarize maybe certain events, that's not actually the point of the book blurb. The point of the book blurb is to hook readers into wanting to read your book. So obviously you're going to summarize certain parts of the story, but that itself is not the goal of the blurb. It's to hook the reader into hitting that buy button. And so we want to look at maybe some of the ways other writers are doing this. Okay, here we go. So here's one that looks a little closer to what I write, possibly. Is a Spark of Fate, the Shifting Fate series books. I haven't looked at any of these books beforehand, so I'm just diving in with you guys, and we're just going to look and get some ideas and kind of see how people do it. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a completely blank slate in the place where no one knew about the tragedy that ripped her family apart 6 months ago, a tragedy Rowan can't help but blame herself for. Now, the only thing she wants is to blend in, to escape the house that has become more like a prison. Her new school is her only hope, somewhere she can pretend she's just like everyone else. Only Ronan doesn't realize how unique she is. Holden is the first to recognize it, but he's not the last. Rowan can't explain the draw she feels to the guys who have found their way into her life. The way something seems to spark the first moment she touches each of them, how it almost hurts to walk away at the end of the day. But things are changing. From the rippling power humming just below her skin to this new family she's finding herself a part of, but not all changes are good. Someone doesn't like the power Rowan is stepping into, or the bonds she's forming with the guys who have gifts rare and strong as her own. When the truth is revealed, it is the power to burn everything in its wake. And then this is one of the parts that I love that I think lots of book blurbs are doing that people don't take enough advantage of. This is book one in a continuing 3-book series. Think Fated Mates, a heroine who has no idea just how special she is, broody and swoony, crazy protective heroes, and a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. So these right here are some really good buzzwords. Buzzwords, keywords, think of things like that. Because when you upload your book, no matter the platform, whether it's Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Draft to Digital, anything like that, they're going to give you a certain number of keywords that you're able to put on your story. And when you do that, there's usually a limited number. And one of those is one of the best ways to help readers find your stories. And so this is a great way to fit more in than what the platform naturally allows you to do. Or to do some of them again, just to make sure your story really pops up. And the reason some of these buzzwords are really important is because when people search books, they can actually search by some of those categories or keywords there. So I'm going to do Fated Mates. Werewolves and Fated Mates. So now I have a bunch of Fated Mates stories popping up. Now, these are a little bit more adulty than some of mine are, I think, which is part of my problem as an author, where I am marketing towards young adult audiences instead of adult with my current series. But nevertheless, this is still one of the best ways that they pop up here. Let's go look at this one. Okay, so here's another example of something that I love in book blurbs. Using to your advantage, bolding certain parts that you want to draw emphasis to. The Great Pack Gathering, 3 little words, 1 mandate that ruined my life. I'm a doctor and researcher. My pack is small and a quiet of central Texas. It's simple existence, and I like it that way. It's just me and my 2 besties living our best single lives. That is until the mandate comes. Every unmated wolf in the entire world called to one place. I'm a PSI, the weakest designation there is. I can barely shift, and there's no chance of me getting matched, only humiliated. It can't get worse until it does. I've barely made it off the bus when I lock eyes with the hottest wolf I've ever seen, and he reeks of power. There's no way he'll be interested in me, a PSI, wolf who can barely hold her shift. Until my wolf starts acting crazy. My magic goes on the fritz, and I'm suddenly wielding way more power than a lousy PSI. Goddess only knows what's going on, but there isn't much time for me to figure it out. Oh, and there's one more little thing. Mr. Hottie McPowerful, he's the prince of the shifter world and my fated mate, whether he wants to be or not. One click now to dive into the steamy wolf shifter romance. If you love wolf shifters, fated mates, but not insta-love, cinnamon roll hero, supportive girl bestie, then this book is for you. This new paranormal from April L. Moon is perfect for fans of Shannon Mayer, Damon Eve. The first book contains a happily ever after for our main couple. The story arc spans multiple books, but each one contains a new couple and a new romance while still bringing in familiar faces until our world's problems are solved. So this is a great example of a book blurb. Not only does it give you a little bit of a summary of the beginning problem in the book. I think that's the biggest thing. I see a lot of new writers try to summarize a large portion of their book when they do the book blurb, when really you just want to give a brief description of the inciting incident in your book. You want to bring them into what is the first thing that's going to make you excited to keep reading, because you don't want to spoil the rest of your book, right? And so slightly summarize and make it exciting. And definitely use bolding certain parts. This catches the reader's eye before they've even fully started reading it and helps kind of break things up a little bit. That way it's not just a huge chunk of words there that you're trying to make your way through. The other thing I love is telling you, not even necessarily tropes, but it can be tropes, right? So tropes or elements in the book for people who like those things. So again, like the cinnamon roll hero, mine has a cinnamon roll hero also. So that's something that I like to advertise a lot. I don't know. I'll have to check if I put that in my book blurb. I'll pull up the new blurb for Blood Wolf and see if we put that in. But if somebody searches cinnamon roll hero and werewolves, this book is likely to come up because it has that in there. And then again, down here, they did exactly one of the things that I love that I've seen a lot of popular authors on Amazon do, where they tell you the type of book it is with the paranormal romance. She lets you know that it does have a happily ever after, and tells you a little bit about the series as a whole, where she has other books, but the future ones aren't going to focus on this couple. So it's a interconnected standalone is what it sounds like, kind of. Maybe not even fully interconnected standalone, but similar to that, where you're not going to focus on this couple through the whole series. And she also has comp authors in here. So comp authors are something I am not very good at yet. I am still learning and trying to figure out how to best compare my writing and story structure to other authors out there. But if you know who your comp authors are, who your comp books are, these are authors or books that if fans like them, they're going to like yours because of the similar elements to them. And so if you know that, definitely stick like stuff like that in the blurb, because again, if somebody's looking up Shannon Mayer books, guess what? This one might pop up because she mentioned her in her blurb. So that is the power of the blurb, is use that search engine optimization on your side. It is so hard getting our books discovered as authors, let alone for people to actually click the buy now button. So do yourself a favor and at least put in these buzzwords that are going to help readers actually find your story and decide if they're going to hit that buy now button. One thing that I do want to stress though with blurbs is that as you are picking words and, you know, doing that summary, please make sure that they're accurate for your actual story and book. You don't want to add in things like it's a thrilling story if yours is more of a cozy fantasy, right? You want to make sure you're setting up realistic expectations for your readers, so that way they aren't disappointed when it comes time to read your book. Another thing that I don't see often, but I saw once, and I really want to make sure people avoid, is when you summarize the book, putting the summary actually happened in the book. I recently read a book where I borrowed it from the library based off of the book blurb, and it sounded really interesting, but there was a couple of the events that they talked about in the blurb that never happened in the book. And what I'm guessing happened is sometimes people will suggest that authors write the blurb before they actually write the book. So that way you can kind of see the selling points you want to put into the book itself. And I think this author might have done that and forgot to go update it after they wrote the book, because there were multiple elements in the blurb as part of the storyline that they said happened to the main characters that never happened once. And so definitely make sure that your blurb and your keywords align with your story. That way you set up realistic expectations for those readers. With that one where her blurb was messed up, that was definitely one of the most brought up things in the reviews, was people saying that certain events never happened. And so you don't want to see a bunch of reviews like that coming through, that they didn't get what they expected from you or there was false advertising. So definitely just be aware of that. Okay, so now that we've looked at a couple, I definitely would recommend looking at your own genre, whatever you're writing in. Go through and find whichever ones, books and genres fit you. If you know your comp authors, go look at their book blurbs and see what works for them. Again, you don't want to have to necessarily copy anybody else, but you can see where there's a general flow. A lot of times they'll start like a tagline or a quote or something. If you have any, what are they called? If you have any like editorial reviews or like really good reviews that came through, a lot of times people will put that up there. Like if you are a USA best-selling author, I don't think they do that list anymore right now as far as I've heard, but still, if you are on one of those cool lists or anything like that, definitely put it up there. If you aren't, if you're just one of a small beans author like the rest of us, then definitely go through and start it out with something exciting to draw them in before you jump into your summary. So let's go look at Blood Wolf really quick. I wanted to show you guys really quick the old description that I had in there, and then we'll look at the new one that I put in. And so far, I will say, it hasn't been long enough for me to tell fully if the new one is doing its job, but within the small amount of time that I've had it changed, I do think the update that I did helped. You can definitely let me know in the comments below your opinion, whether you liked the old one or the new one better. I think there's still a few things in the new one that I will end up reworking, but still, this is what we have now, and we're gonna compare and see what changes were made. So previously, I had a world of shifters and fated mates, a secret that if revealed could change the world as they know it, a slow burn romance that seems destined to fail. So I tried to have a little bolded part with some keywords to kind of draw people in, but I don't think it was exciting enough. And then we jumped into the summary. Jade's already complicated life as a rogue werewolf is turned upside down when the Alpha Council orders all rogues to report to the nearest pack. Surrounded by enemies, Jade will have to fight to keep her friends close and hold tight to a dark secret, which will prove difficult when her mate and future Alpha, Darren Power, steps into her life. With everything against them, can Darren learn how to earn Jade's trust? Will Jade be able to deal with the demons of her past, or will they consume her? Follow along in Jade and Darren's journey in the thrilling start of the Blood Wolf trilogy. So it's got a slight summary there, but it does have some of the buzzwords at the top, but I just wasn't loving the flow of it. So after I learned more of these things, I went in and I changed it to this, which like I said, I currently like better. We'll see. We may rework it again, but every wolf knows the most important day of their life is when they meet their mate. But in Jade's case, some things just aren't meant to be. Jade's already complicated life as a rogue werewolf is turned upside down when the Alpha Council orders all rogues to report to the nearest pack. Surrounded by enemies, Jade will have to fight to keep her friends close and hold tight to her darkest secret, which will prove difficult when her mate and future Alpha, Darren Power, steps into her life. I have punctuation missing there. That's okay though. We'll fix that later. As much as Darren would love to worry about winning over his wild mate's heart, it's difficult to do when females are falling ill left and right with no cure in sight. Still, he can't help being pulled towards a scar-clad rogue despite everyone telling him it can never work. With everything against them, can Darren learn to earn Jade's trust, and will Jade be able to deal with the demons of her past before they consume her? A slow burn shifter romance suitable for young adults, 13 plus, and fans of cinnamon roll men, forbidden love, morally gray villains, and strong women. Follow along in Jade and Darren's journey and the exciting start of the Blood Wolf trilogy. So, you can see there, I still have the summary, and a lot of that summary actually is worded very similarly, but I changed the inciting incident a little bit. I didn't change the inciting, I changed my hook to draw them in, and used some more of those buzzwords, especially down here. And I put in who my target audience is, because even though my categories say young adult, again, my books themselves are in a weird category where, they're not in a weird category, but they're in a weird marketing spot where most werewolf books are targeted towards adults. So I wanted to make it clear in here, and not just from the categories down below here that I put them in. See, I had them in teen and young adult, but I wanted to make sure that it was clear just from looking up here that it is a book for young adults. And so you're not going to find, spicy things. And it's rated kind of for 13 up. So, there might be some violence, there might be some romance, there's going to be some romantic elements, but you can pretty confidently go into this knowing that you're not going to have a bunch of steamy or spicy scenes in it, and no explicit stuff like that. So this for me was just setting up expectations. Now let's go in and look at Blood Trials, which I have not updated yet. If you haven't read Blood Wolf yet, you're going to have some slight spoilers here with updating this. So if that bothers you, don't read this part, but I actually think this one is pretty decent. I think there's just a few things that I want to update and change in it. Okay, so she spent her life trying not to become the monster they think she is, but what if a monster is exactly what they need? Injured and hunted, Jade is forced to flee the Northwind Pack's territory and leave her mate Darren Power behind. But she's been followed, and a hunter has his sights set on Jade, and he isn't afraid to hurt those she loves to get to her. Finding herself backed into a corner, Jade is left with two options: run to draw the danger away from her friends, or accept help from her sworn enemy for a price. What Jade doesn't know is that Darren... definitely don't like this part. What Jade doesn't know is that Darren knows she's in danger, and he won't rest until she's safe. But the rogues aren't the only ones that call the mountain forest their home, and Darren is far from prepared for the dangers that he'll face on his quest to find Jade and right his father's mistakes. Hunters, witches, betrayal, and forgotten legends are around every corner, and Darren and Jade are about to learn that the truth isn't always what it seems. Can they let go of their pasts and what they know to find the truth before it's too late? Blood Trials is the second book of the Blood Wolf trilogy, a YA paranormal romance. So again, I tried to put some of those buzzwords in, but it didn't really work super well. So I think I like this. I just don't know if that needs to be the opening.
Sometimes like all you want to do is run. Hear me out, hear me out. It's all the things you never show. There are the things I want to know. Secrets start in your heart so slow. But if you don't want to tell me now, I guess I'll never know.
Okay, so again, similar to Blood Wolf, I'll probably play around with it a little more, but you can kind of see how I amped up the ending part and how I changed the summary to not give as much away and make it a little bit cleaner here. Okay, so you can pause and read through both of these if you want here to see and compare the two and the changes that happened. Again, I'll probably fiddle around with these at some point and mess with them. I honestly recommend going through every probably couple years or something, and depending on how many books you have. If you're small like me where you only have a couple books out, I'd recommend going through every couple of years and checking your blurbs, seeing if they still hold true and if they're doing their jobs at bringing people in. As we grow as writers and authors, you know, we're going to gain more skills. We're going to learn new marketing strategies. The markets themselves change, right? The algorithms change. And so we have to adapt and keep changing these things. And refreshing your blurb, I think, is one of the best ways to really make sure that your, not just your marketing, but the natural draw of your book is on point. So if you haven't taken a look at your blurb in a while, definitely go through and do that. If you haven't finished your book even, I would potentially start writing your blurb and practicing it, because it is genuinely one of the hardest things that most of us go through. And I don't think it has to be, as long as you learn some of the strategies that go into it. So again, just to summarize, the best way to write a blurb, in my opinion, is to start with a hook in the beginning, something to pull them in. I think it's best to have that bolded or in italics, something to draw them in and make them look at it. And then you want to do just a very short, brief summary of the inciting incident in your book. You don't want to get too much into later details. You just want the inciting incident. And then at the end, I would recommend putting in more keywords, working in keywords and or comp authors and titles, things that if people like those, they are going to like your book, and searchable terms that whatever platform you're on, the algorithm is going to help bring people to your book. If you have any other tips with writing blurbs, please put them down below. I am still trying to master this. I'm still learning, and I would love any other tips that you guys have, and I'm sure other people would as well. If you have any other questions about publishing, writing, where to upload your books or anything like that, definitely let me know so I can know what topics you guys want to hear about. And happy writing. See you guys next week.
I always should have stayed. This really happened. I can't believe it's true. I'm just as surprised as you.